All right, everybody, let's get back to this little mini truck project and get you caught up on what we've been doing the last couple days. Actually, last day and a half or so. I've made some good progress, so let's get at it. Let's show what we got. So when I got the truck, the bed had a plastic drop-in bed liner. I took that out, and I had mentioned in the first video there was some rust repair that I had done in here. There was actually a small hole. I cut it out, welded in a few pieces, cleaned it up, fiberglassed it, a little bit of body filler, didn't go crazy, undercoated the underneath of it. This truck, I don't plan for the time I own it for it to see bad weather anymore. So the rust repair on the bed, if this truck was gonna see snow and salt and crap and drive it year round, it probably lasts a couple years before it starts popping, but I'm hoping it's gonna be much longer because, like I said, I'm not gonna drive it in that kind of weather, and if I end up selling it, I'm thinking the person that buys it is not gonna drive it in that kind of weather. So I did the rust repair. I had gone over the whole bed with a really heavy wire wheel, and I really went at it with the large wire wheel and just knocking all the loose debris out, all the loose paint, all the loose crap. So after that, I had gone by hand with 80 grit, and I 80 gritted down the whole bed. This down by hand, tried to get into all these bumps and these curves. I went over all of it. Anything that was already painted, it just got a really good Scotch-Briting with some red Scotch-Brite, which is the heavy duty. Same thing on the tailgate. Tailgate just got a good Scotch-Briting, got a good cleaner, wax and grease remover. I have the tailgate all taped up. We're gonna do this top edge. We're gonna do the top edge kind of down over the lip here on both sides. What I just did now is I did have a few areas after sanding. The bed had some rust in it. It had one of those drop-in bed liners. What they do and why I don't really care for them, and they're kind of like outdated, but the trucks still do come with them, is they sit in the bed, you put stuff on the bed, and the plastic rubs against the paint underneath, and eventually it wears that paint out, and it goes right through the paint to bare metal. Then over time, moisture, rust, and you pull out your liner, and you'll find that you have rust, and that's what happened here. So I decided to go a little bit overkill. I got some Pour 15, and I went over all the heavy spots where there was, pitting, rust showing, stuff that didn't clean up, and I hit it all. Now, I'm gonna let that flash. Next step is gonna be an epoxy primer. I have some leftover epoxy primer from something I did a while ago, and it's just been, I'm gonna let this Pour 15 tack. I'm gonna, not let it cure all the way, probably give it about a half hour from now. In that meantime, I'm gonna run my seam sealer where I need it. And then after the seam sealer is run, it's basically going to be mix up the epoxy primer and give it a coat, 1 to 2 coats, just coverage. Then after that, it's going to be mix up the rafter liner and spray it, because I'm going to try to go wet on wet on wet. I don't want to sand between coats. I don't want to do it and then wait and then have to go back again and sand. That's a pain. I've learned you're better off just hit it, let it flash, 10-15 minutes depending on the temperature and time of year. Then go over with your other coats. The coats are all gonna melt together and they're all gonna bond together. So your adhesion in the beginning is mechanical. It's sanded, it's scuffed. Now it's gonna be from mechanical to chemical adhesion, because what's gonna happen is your layers of your material are gonna kind of melt together and they're all gonna become one as they dry and they cure. The only thing you have to be careful of is not giving enough flash time, because what can happen is what they call like solvent pop. So basically, as these things cure, they let out solvents. If you trap the solvents in by burying too many layers too quickly, you could get it where they pop through the top. So over time, you'll get like these weird, they're like fish eyes, but not really. And that's the solvent that's breaking through the layers of material to come out. So we don't want to go too quick, but enough where if I touch this and it's mostly dry, a little tacky, that's where you want it. All right, so I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna do the seam sealer next, and then I'll shoot that, and then we'll keep moving. All right, so we just dusted, it's like kind of a heavy coat in certain areas, like on the sides where I needed the coverage. On the wheel wells, I did a heavier coat. Over to Pour 15, I did a lighter coat, and I'm hoping it's not going to become an issue. It doesn't seem like it's going to become an issue, but what I believe is happening is looking back, I probably could have skipped the Pour 15, and I had thoughts. I had originally never thought about using the Pour 15. My original thought was like, I got this epoxy primer lying around. I'm just going to blast a primer over the floor and call it a day. And I kind of wish I had done that, but you know, everything's a learning curve, so here we go. What I noticed with the Pour 15 is I've top coated Pour 15 with multiple different things, but I never did a wet on wet. And what I believe is going on with the Pour 15 is that even though I did a lighter coat with the brush, it still takes a while to cure. It's, you know, probably about 60 degrees in here. It's not super warm. What I noticed is if I laid the primer on a little too thick where the Pour 15 was heavy, it was like almost reactivating the top layer of the Pour 15. And I believe what's happening is when the primer hits the Pour 15, the activator in the epoxy primer is probably slightly reactivating that top coat. So what will happen is you'll spray it and you'll notice a little bit of, I'd call it checking. It's not giving a smooth coverage. Now I dusted it, I let it sit, and it seems to dry and it seems to get real good and hard and tacky, but it's taking a lot longer to cure than I originally thought. And like I said, everything's a learning curve when you're doing things you haven't done. I've done Raptor liner. I've never put Pour 15 down and then epoxy primer over it. Usually when I do Pour 15, it's like Pour 15 and then, you know, Rust-Oleum just to protect the UV, because Pour 15 doesn't have any UV protection. So anything that the sun can hit that's Pour 15, the sun can like not bleach it out, but it'll make it look chalky. So with doing the epoxy in the Pour 15, looking back on it now, I probably should have just stuck with the epoxy primer and not done the Pour 15. So like right here, if you look, you could see where it's kind of cracking. So if you go in there before this dries, like right now I could touch it, it's not bad. But if I was to go in there and really wipe hard, I could probably wipe this stuff off. But what I noticed is over time, once it gets a good cure, it doesn't seem to do that. So I'm gonna let it sit, I'm gonna let it really cure out. Obviously where there is not Pour 15 and I sprayed the primer, see? And like I said, I kind of looking back on it, wish I had never done the Pour 15, because I'm seeing an issue that I'm hoping is gonna alleviate itself. Like right here, I had done the Pour 15 and I'd let it sit and I had touched it and I had seen like, oh wow, man, this stuff is like wiping. It's like sitting on top of the Pour 15. So I let it cure and then I did a second coat over it. And now it seems like, you know, once it's dry, it's not coming off. So I'm thinking that's what's gonna happen with the rest of this. But I don't know how long that's gonna take to get a full good cure. Like right here, I didn't, like I said, I went very light, so it's just got a little bit of coverage. Now I can wipe it pretty hard. It's not coming off. So I'm thinking that if I let it cure, let it set, I'm not gonna do another coat. I was thinking about doing another coat. I'm not gonna do another coat. I'm gonna skip that. I'm just gonna go ahead, let this cure out and go to lunch. And once I come back, if it feels like it's stuck pretty good and it's still a little tacky, I think I'm just gonna mix it up and spray the Raptor liner and cross my fingers that I don't end up with another issue that I didn't expect. I mean, there's not much more that I can really do. I mean, the only other option is to either A, you get a razor blade and you get some thinner and you start scraping this crap off and you scrape it all down, or you let it cure fully for a day and then you go at it and you sand it again. I'm gonna let it cure. I'm gonna go out, get some lunch. I'm gonna come back, and if it looks like I could rub on it and it's not coming loose, if it looks like it's stuck on there pretty good, I'm just gonna bury it and cross my fingers that it doesn't come back to bite me. Now, like I said earlier in the video, this is one of these things, like if this was a customer truck, I probably would have erred on the side of, okay, let's stop, let's let the Pour 15 dry for a full day, let it cure, we'll scuff it, and then we'll shoot the epoxy primer over it, and hopefully it'll be good. It's my own vehicle. I'm willing to take the risk. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to dust coat the epoxy primer over to 415, and hopefully once it settles and they both kind of meld together and they both cure out, it'll be better. I'm thinking what happens is, like I say, when the epoxy hits it, it reactivates it, and it takes a little while for it to settle in. So like I said, when you look at it close, you can kind of see, you know, if you wanted to paint over this, like I would never put, see if you push on it, I can still feel it's sticky. I would never put any kind of automobile paint. Like if I was painting this bed white, it'd be a wrap. You'd be done. You'd have to either let it cure totally and sand it all back down and recoat it, or you'd have to chemically strip it, remove it, whatever. You'd have to do something. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna Raptor line it, and I have a feeling that if I let it cure, it'll be fine. It'll be sticky. The Raptor liner is gonna stick to it well, and it's all gonna be happy. But if it was a customer car, I might have just opted to either A, scraped it all off, or B, let it cure 24 hours, sand it, and see what happens. So I'm gonna try to throw caution to the wind. And another thing is patience. You know, it's hard sometimes when you get into something and you have it in your mind, oh, I'm gonna do this today, I'm gonna get this done. And then things start going wrong and you wanna still get it done. You still wanna push forward. And sometimes you just gotta pull back. And I learned that from a good friend of mine that taught me a lot with body work is, you know, the patience aspect of it is really everything. And if you're impatient and you can't just pull back sometimes and just, you know, think clearly, you keep trying to rush, trying to quick with dry times, hurry things up, you usually end up with making a mess. So I'm hoping I'm not going down that road. I've been down that road before with other things. Like I said, you know, 2020 hindsight, I probably should have just never bothered with the pour 15. This bed was already prepped. I could have come in here this morning, probably laid and basted, you know, probably could have laid 2 nice coats of this epoxy primer, let it cure, and then shot the Raptor liner. Probably be already home sitting on the couch. I'd be done for the day. Unfortunately, that's not what I chose to do, and now looks like it's taken longer for me to get where I want to go. But that's where we're at. I'm going to get back with you guys, and we'll go in a little while, and we'll see how this thing cures out. All right, so we got the bed finished up. I unfortunately didn't, well, not unfortunately, I pretty much on purpose didn't record any of that because spraying white, I learned very early in the spraying process. I started spraying it and I was like, oh, I'll set up the camera. It takes a long time to really get a good overlay and get good coverage. So I said, you know what, instead of trying to record what I'm doing, I'm by myself, I'll just do it and then I'll show you the end product. Plus, we've already covered spraying Raptor liner. There's a video. It's probably one of my most popular videos, so you guys can just go back and watch that. You know, it's funny, as it dries, the white brightens up and it's pretty bright, so it almost makes the camera not really focus great. But we wrapped it all the way around and I'm really happy with how that looks, and I like the function of that. If you were going to use the bed for actual work, you're not going to scratch up the rail and scratch up the top part if you step on it, put stuff on top of it. All in all, it sprayed pretty good. I had a lot of issues with this process, and the fact that I could say when we did the blue truck, and it's coming up on a year ago, we did the blue truck, the Dodge. I felt the process for doing the whole truck went a lot smoother than just doing this one bed. I had a lot of little things that kind of tripped up the process. Some of the chemicals I was using weren't really reacting well with other chemicals I was using, and it caused a lot of extra work. And then I started spraying it and I was having problems with the gun. I had a better quality gun that I had used for most of my projects I had done. And then it got to the point where you just couldn't clean it anymore. Like, you know, I mean, even if it was a decent quality gun, they're not the best quality to begin with. So after cleaning it, taking it apart and all that stuff so many times, it started giving me problems. So I've used, every time you buy a kit, they usually send you a gun. And I was having problems. I ended up having to, so this gun came in a kit. It was bed liner, but it was made by Bully. It was like a waterproof, or not waterproof, I'm sorry. It was a water-based single part bed liner, which I had never sprayed before. This gun saved that project for sure, because the other two guns I had, the one that came with the kit I bought and the one I had stashed, it's still sitting in here. They were different brands, so certain things wouldn't work from one gun to the other, and both the guns had like faulty triggers, where this has a very good spring-loaded, nice feeling trigger. So this gun I ended up cleaning. I'm going to use it again, but I had a gun similar to that when I did the Dodge project, and it went a lot better. So after all the corners, the edges, the back part, all the, you know, hard to reach areas were done, I did the floor. Floor came out pretty easy. Like I said, once the new gun was working, I redid the wheel wells. I had already done these once. So I did the sides, the fronts, the wheel wells. I did the floor. After I did the floor, I went, you know, long ways down, sprayed, and then I went to the sides. I sprayed everything on the edges to get all these. If you don't, you'll have light spots. You know, the trick is coverage. You just want even coverage, and if you can maintain even texture, it looks even better. If your textures are all over the place, and every gun I used in the first two that I messed with, they sprayed different. And it's almost, sometimes with this stuff, it almost seems like every bottle sprays a little different. So got the sides done, got the back done, did the floor, went over the floor. Then I had the tailgate on the stand. I did the tailgate, you know, did the edge, did all the inside. And then I did the rails last. So these, if you're doing one of these and going off the rail, this is your last step. I would definitely suggest too, don't use plastic. Like, you could drape the car in plastic, but I'll tell you right now, wherever you're gonna spray, you would probably want to paper wherever you're gonna direct spray. Like, next time I do this, I'm gonna paper the back of the truck and get the paper down to there, wrap it, and then plastic it. Because the plastic, well, maybe not even use the plastic, or have the plastic first and then the paper over it. Either way, you don't want the plastic too close to that, because you're spraying that stuff at like 40 to 60 PSI depending, and it flaps and it'll want to touch it. And I actually had a problem where I can see it, and some people may notice it, some people may not. I noticed it. I had where it flapped and it got into it, and then I had to kind of like lay a bunch of layers over it to kind of even it out, and made little mistakes. And the other thing that stinks is they really need, I don't know why, someone really needs to, well, maybe I can do it, gravity feed style for that system. That system should be like a gravity feed, man. If you had a gravity feed, because another thing is the bottle. You have a bottle that's, I don't know, it's pretty long. So you have this on top of a gun like that. You know, that's a lot of real estate. That's a lot of, when it's full, you know, it's a little heavy. It's not terrible, but it's a lot to navigate. And what ends up happening is, like, let's say you want to spray on, like, let's say you want to spray on the inside there. That wheel well, like when you want to get like where the wheel well is and spray up, you can't, because the bottle is so long. You can't get close, because if you do, you rub this. So you got to be very careful and selective. The spots you spray, how you do it. So rule of thumb, start at the hardest parts to get into. That's where you spray first. Then you do everything that's on the sides. Then once all that is good, you would do your wheel wells. Then you would do your floor. And if you're doing top of rail would be last and, you know, final. So you work your way from the hardest to the sides, to the wheel wells, to the floor, to the rail. And you will save yourself a lot of trouble. That's the best tip I can give you. But came out good. Things I'm not happy about, there are a few. I'm a little, like, I'm not happy kind of how that's a little bit lifted. It's got like a gap there. So I'm going to try to clean that up a bit with some seam sealer. Maybe some here. I did some seam sealer. I should have done some more. I should have taken a little bit more time to kind of craft these edges. You know, the bed is used, it's a 95. It's probably, I know I did some repair on it. You know, it had a bad spot. I fixed it, but it's not the best repair in the world. It's still got some rough spots. You know, it's got some, you know, some imperfections like that one right in there. I wish I had cleaned that up a bit. But that's the difference between doing a used bed and doing a new bed. It's, you do a new bed and they look excellent because the bed is perfect, you know, quality fitment and no dents. Like, I didn't fix any of the dings. You know, I didn't take any time to do that. So we're gonna pull all this stuff out of here. We're gonna get it laid out. We're gonna get it organized, and we're gonna start working on the inside of the interior. This bed's gonna, if I do any touch-ups, any repairs, which I might do a little bit of seam sealing, I might see where to get the body plugs. I'm thinking there's body plugs that go in there. I'm thinking, you know, I know there's one was missing for here. So see about getting those. And then, you know, I kind of wish I had taken, one thing I didn't do, I kind of got lazy with, I didn't take these hooks off. I kind of wish I did, but, you know, all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. The color is just a, I ordered a kit off eBay that had the color with it. It's like a GM color, and I'm going to tell you right now, in the bottle, it looks totally different. I actually touched up. See right there? I got to do another coat, but I touched that up with the white. And I mean, on a small spot, it doesn't look too off, and in the bottle, it doesn't look too off, but I'm going to tell you, on camera, I think it looks better. It's kind of more of a yellowish white, but I'm hoping maybe that little bit of contrast will, maybe that'll add to it.